Welcome to the Tech Pathfinder podcast, where we explore the impact of technology on the people in your workplace. Hello and welcome to the Tech Pathfinder podcast, where we explore the impact of technology on the people in your workplace. I'm your host JP, and I help businesses get the most out of their technology through the engagement and support of their people. In today's episode, we're going to explore the importance of designing your systems and processes to support your technology solutions. When it comes to implementing new technology into the workplace, one of the most important factors in your ongoing success is the systems and processes you build around the new technology within the workplace. Although most software providers are going to provide implementation support and generic training and help guides, how your organization uses the solution is often something that evolves and grows over the time it's going to be used. On today's episode, I'm going to chat with Nicole Smith from the Artisans Business Solutions about the steps you can take to review how your technology is being used and design systems and processes to ensure the ongoing success of the solution and the people who use it every single day. Nicole is a virtual chief operations officer and business operations specialist and systems designer. Prior to launching the Artisans Business Solution in 2020, Nicole worked alongside business leaders as a chief of staff and has been responsible for leading system design, implementation, integrations, and resolutions in the financial services and logistics sectors, both here in Australia and in the UK. Now, Nicole, along with her team, has adapted this experience to bring that big system thinking of organizations to practical solutions for fellow founders and business leaders. Welcome, Nicole.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited about this conversation because the world of tech is a little bit of my love space. So this is going to be fabulous.
Yeah, I think it's going to go really well. And your background and your focus on that, the change process and making sure that we're setting up the systems. We're going to get into it. Before we get too far into the questions, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I fumbled the intro a little bit, but that's okay.
You're fabulous.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and your company, the Artisans Business Solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Artisans Business Solutions opened our doors early 2020, pre that beautiful time when we were all locked away for a couple of years. And we had the aim and the goal to, as you said, bring that bigger picture thinking, the accessibility that the bigger organizations have, the global organizations, into the small business space. Now, I have worked across the financial sectors, logistics, and now within a lot of varied industries since we've moved into supporting smaller businesses within the Artisans. And one thing that I identified before taking that leap over was that there was this gap. The SME space were beautifully successful in what they do, right? They've run businesses, they've scaled them, they've grown teams, and yet this consistent thread I was seeing were that they weren't fully utilizing their ways of working, the ways that their team are connecting in, and the technology to actually be efficient, impactful, and make it easier for the business to operate, right? We want to be able to create an environment that is enjoyable for our teams to operate in versus, there's that blockage again. I can't move forward because the tech isn't supporting me. And so my role had always been that middle human between the business and the tech. So be that your daily IT support, or working with custom database solutions and their developers to be able to enhance the way that those systems were built to really support the way that the business wants to operate. And that's my little fun zone. It's that translation piece that I absolutely love. One of the things that I'm known for is being able to take the mind of the entrepreneur and translate it into a way of working for them that they have maybe not yet finessed. And that's where we come in. Give me a workflow doc any day of the week. I love it. SOP documents, we're all about it over here. But it's really exciting when we have those conversations and find out and discover where they are now, where we're going with the business, and what are those ways of working we can introduce and support them to make business as usual. and then connected in with the team and the business. So it's all fabulous, really exciting.
Yeah, over the last 10 or so years, there's been a big shift of organizations, or sorry, technology designed for big
Mm.
organizations coming down to the mid market and then down to the SMB market. And I think you're right in then this technology's come down and it's great and it saves all this time. But if it's not deployed correctly, if people aren't engaged in the process and understand how it works, then it's not going to stick. It's not going to have the same effect and impact. Big businesses have massive teams, or at least bigger teams, to be able to support the implementation, to support the ongoing running and training with these sorts of courses. So systems. So being able to actually drive that with with your support is really exciting.
Yeah, it's a fun space to be in, and I still love having conversations directly with the SaaS providers, and they all provide these beautiful onboarding solutions, right? Which
Mm,
is what you alluded to earlier. However, when you go into those calls without really understanding what you're looking to create,
mm,
it's not as an impactful experience. Whereas when you have that design in place, you can go in and with focused action, I want to achieve this, and
mm.
then we can help to build that tech around that outcome. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fun.
I want to go into that a little more, understanding the importance of integrating your processes and
Mm.
your ways of working, I guess, into the new technology. As you said there, the technology vendors, the SaaS providers will do a really good job in providing, you know, help spaces, training courses, guides, built-in help to guide you through as you're going on. But where do you think that misses the gap, or sort of falls short of what businesses actually need to be able to be really successful in implementing tech?
Yeah, 100%. So, what those businesses are really good at is creating beautiful wiki libraries,
Mm,
and it's very much a plug and play, right? So it's an off the shelf solution.
mm,
You could do this or you could do that. There are so many options. Let me just use ClickUp for an example. ClickUp is a project management tool. If your listeners have not heard of it, go and have a look at it. It's fabulous, hugely customizable, lots of room to make it complex and complicated and then
mm,
just not enjoyable. They've got beautiful learning videos and libraries and articles. Yet, if you're not sure on why you're pressing the buttons and what design is actually going to work to support your business to be efficient, then
mm,
we're missing the mark. So, having that opportunity to actually sit down and firstly discover what is happening in your business right now. So, if we let's just select a system. So, let's talk about sales, our sales system, right? So, what is working well? What's not working? Where are we doing it? Who's involved? And what are those sort of blockages that we're finding within that process itself? Once we are aware of all of that information, then we have the opportunity to now think bigger. What if it could be like this? Or have we thought about introducing this? Or imagine if the experience we wanted to shape for our potential new clients felt and looked like this. Then we go into that design process. Now, I really look at what we do over here as a really creative process. We've had conversations before, creative humans from theatrical and all this sorts of stuff. So this is a really creative process for us to be able to take that curiosity wider and then really bring it in home to find that design that really suits the business that we're looking to support and your business that you're operating in.
mm,
Now, when you're in that design process, there's lots of things to consider. So again, it's the experience that we're wanting to shape. How does it look and feel? Who's from your internal team is involved in this process? Is it just you if you're a single business leader, or if you've got a large sales team? How many people will be accessing this? One of the final parts of the piece is actually the technology. And what we have found is that many people will come and say, okay, I want to use ClickUp in my business. Can you set that up for me?
mm,
100% we can support you to do that. However, before we even get into the tech, we need to understand what we're doing with it and how you want to utilize it. And that's the power, is when you know how that experience should be shaped or you want to shape it.
Mm.
And then you find the technology to suit you versus choosing the technology and trying to shove in how you want to work. That experience really does transfer. Now, it's something, I guess, to think about for bigger organizations. You may have systems that are already, integrated into business.
Yeah.
Now, if they are a custom design solution, it's then about talking to the developers. Now, we're all aware there are costs to anything with development, right? We've got to be aware of that. And there's phases that you go through. Again, design, logic, testing. You would be aware of UAT, so important, making sure those buttons are pressed and the experience is going through.
Mm.
However, when again it comes back to design, doesn't it? What is the purposeful intention of what we're looking to shape here? And then making sure the budgets on either side, equate that return on investment.
I remember we had a big federal government client. This is going back maybe 8 years, and they had a performance management system in place. It wasn't meeting their needs and it wasn't working, so they took the bold step of actually taking a 12-month hiatus. They pulled the plug on the system, went back to a manual process for 12 months while they redesigned and got a really clear picture and understanding of what it is they wanted to achieve, rather than and it was end of the contract, so it wasn't a matter of you know sort of voiding the contract itself. But rather than bringing a solution without having done that discovery, they did the discovery. They ripped everything down and built it back from the ground up. And then when they went through the tender process, and we were part of that at the time, they were actually able to really clearly articulate, this is what we're trying to achieve. And it was quite refreshing, because a lot of the time you go in and you're right, the client has a pre-built idea of what system is going to be best for them, and it's because they've heard good things about it, or they've seen it work in other organizations. In the HR tech space, a lot of people who come from bigger organizations, they go into the mid-market or small business and they say, right, well, we need Workday because Workday is really great, and it's fantastic. But unless you've got $1 million budget, you're not going to be able to, and that might be exaggerating, but unless you've got a big budget, Workday is not going to work for your mid to small business. So, taking it back to that breakdown of what is it that we're trying to achieve, not what are the process itself, but what's the outcome that we're focused on, and being able to change that. So my question to you is, there's that push and pull. If someone's looking at implementing a new solution and they're going, I've got this process that's really well ingrained and it's working. The process is working, but nothing on the market does exactly that. What wins in that sort of push and pull? Do you modify the process itself to be able to suit what your either current existing system does, or do you go out and build something from scratch, or find something that's got a lot more flexibility and likely cost, as you said, with development, to actually achieve that process?
So in the world we're in now, we have accessibility to so many solutions. Something you've probably heard and you've probably said it yourself is there's no one solution that's going to solve all the world's problems or your problems. And so if you actually think a little bit broader about, well, maybe it's a combination of systems that are specialized in the particular purpose that you're looking to serve. And then you use connection tools to create this ecosystem of what that experience can be. That is one way that you can achieve the full experience. Now, especially if your process is beautifully working, it's successful, the humans in it love operating in it, and it's the tech that's maybe blocking you. It is that conversation around, well, the process is, this is working for us. This is the experience we want to build. So what tech solutions can we find that align with that? And many of the times, again, bigger organizations, small organizations, there's a different approach to this, because there's obviously limitations with, security and, subscriptions and costs and all those sorts of things that you have to consider. But it's really around making those purpose-led decisions. What is the most important thing to me or to the organization right now? Is it overall streamlined experience and this could look like this? Or is it cost and then it could look like this? Or is it, insert words here, whatever it is important? Is it the human element? Maybe
Yeah.
that's not aligning. So that's what's the focus. So I think if you always look at the ways of working and connecting in the tech with purpose, I think you'll get a lot more stronger experience and outcomes from that.
It raises an interesting point around that there's been a shift to, or certainly the bigger businesses have the ability to do everything.
Mm.
So they're all-in-one solutions, and whether it's in, whether it's Atlassian, being able to cover all of your wiki and all of your process through Jira and all of that sort of stuff, or
Mm.
maybe it's a HR solution that can do do all of your HR things, but also do payroll, but also do this. And what you're saying there is that might not necessarily be the right way to go. There's that mentality of, well, there's only one person I have to worry, one contract, one invoice. I can squeeze that a little bit better.
Mm.
But if it's not meeting your needs, you tend to take a sacrifice. You might say, well, this meets 80% of what I need to do. The 20% of this particular piece of the puzzle isn't great, but I'm getting a good deal, so it's fine. But if that 20% impacts 50 to 80% of your business, then that's where it really matters. So those point solutions are going to be better because they're more focused on that capability, on that particular skill set and that particular requirement. So yeah, it's an interesting toss up between, particularly if you're looking at your systems at the moment, you're going through a review, you've probably spoken to a few vendors who have got 50%, 80%, maybe 10%, but finding that balance is really key.
Yeah, that's right. And it really does come down to what are the business objectives?
Mm.
What is that again? Where are you looking to head? And
Yeah.
thinking about that is from a return on investment, from a cost efficiency point of view. If, for instance, your systems are causing a process to take double the time, and then you look at the cost comparisons of actually implementing a solution that would allow you to click a button
Mm.
and ding, 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 all these things happen, and then you easily move on through,
Yeah.
then that's something to really have a conversation around. It's that hidden cost of the human expense,
Yeah.
the time expense versus the investment in a solution to move you forward. But I think any of these decisions still come down to really understanding the way that you operate as a business, your system operations. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the human element's really important,
Mhm.
and I think you and I spoke a little bit about ClickUp. I'm shifting from Evernote to Notion at the moment,
Yeah.
and have looked at lots of different things, and I think that that's on a personal scale, and I use it for my business, so it's on quite a small scale. But as my business grows, and as other as organizations are looking at the systems, understanding that the reason that I'm drawn to something like Notion is the way my mind works. Like, I
Yeah.
like the idea of playing with it. I like the idea of it being a blank space with all of these tools to be able to build. Very much the same with yourself and ClickUp. Being
Yeah.
able to build this this database, this broad space with automation inside a confined, controlled space from a security perspective is awesome. I've spent so much time learning that in the last couple of weeks because it's my hyper focus at the moment. But aside from that, it's a lot of fun to understand and to identify that, yeah, maybe it's only by creating an automation that saves me 5 clicks, and that's for me as an individual, as one person. But if you scale that to a 500 person organization, that's 5 clicks times 500 people. If that happens once a day, that's thousands upon thousands of you know clicks, and therefore hundreds of hours worth of man hour being wasted going through that process. So having that clear understanding of the process is really key to be able to go, well, if the process itself, the system is something that people are enjoying using, and it's not people spending hours on administration, then you're saving that time. That cost is worth the spend then to upgrade, modify, or correct the process.
Yeah, 100%. And there's something around, having a new system. We only know what we know. And especially if, I had a conversation with a client recently, and they'd gone through a process of potentially introducing this system. They had paid for it, they'd had these onboarding, but the human that attended those calls from the business was not skilled in the build side of a system. So therefore, there was a real, the experience was not as you would like it to be,
Mm.
right? So yeah, it's just that awareness. When you have awareness, and you can make educated decisions on what you're going to be moving through the business.
Mm-hmm.
Something I just want to jump into, and in the small, like the micro business space, um, everyone loves a project management tool, right? So you've got your ClickUps, your Asana, your Notions, your Trellos, your insert words, lots of different options. I would love to see bigger organizations adapt the same mentality. Now you've got your wikis and your help desks and your
Mm.
Atlassians and all that sort of stuff, right? That gives an area of that. But so many bigger organizations are still operating off the paper and pad, notepad, to-do list, and there's no visibility
Mm.
across what is actually happening or the collaboration between departments. So one of the conversations I've had recently is around, you've got a sales team and you've got a marketing team, and yet they don't talk.
Mm.
And yet when those two combine, because it is sales and marketing, that's what it
Yeah,
is,
it's the banner.
they support each other. If the sales team share the stories to the marketing team, and then the marketing team elevate that out, or yell that out to the world, it's only going to help us to keep continuing, right? And this is where technology can really help to support those collaborations between not only your internal teams
Mm.
but your departments. If we remove the siloed approach and think about us as one unit,
Mm.
imagine what could happen. So powerful.
It really is, yeah. I've talk a lot about AI, and we're not going to spend all the rest of the podcast talking about it, but I'm interested in your take on the use of AI to generate documentation and
Mm,
SOPs and internal facing chatbots. I think it's something that's been really successfully used in the SaaS world. So organizations using it to help create the content that we're accessing and using to start as a starting point for systems training and being able to communicate with the database of how-tos and create how-tos and so on. But what's your take on, I guess, where that plays into the corporate space and in the workplace itself and in creating these processes around your business?
I think anything that will enable humans to document how they're working
Mm.
is a big high five for me. Writing an SOP, it's a job, right?
Mm.
We love it, but it takes energy and time. There's
Mm.
ways you can get started by, in the past, pressing a record on a loom or
Mm.
whatever it might be and having a format. When you inject an AI into it and you connect that in, it gives you the ability to streamline streamline the process
Yeah.
mapping process, right?
Yeah.
Um, it won't ever replace fully, because you've got to have that human element to come in and check over. But if you've moved it from 2 hours to create a document to an hour or half an hour, and that's there ready to go,
Mm.
press that button, people. Get those SOPs documented, because it really creates so much brain space when you've got it out of here and
Mm.
held over there. Also, from an organizational point of view, what I've seen in the past is humans leave and their IP walks out the door. So all of a sudden, there is a big risk happening
Mm.
here of things being missed. If you're in the financial sector, goodness gracious, you don't want anybody to be walking out the door with any IP, full stop. So
Mm.
having that culture of, let's capture how you're operating and
Mm.
share it with the team, it's such a powerful experience, and AI is only going to elevate that and enhance that experience. And I love the internal chatbots as well. Anything that's going to help us to work smarter and easier and be able to support our team to access the information at a click of a button versus scrolling through a database of
Or
information,
sending a
having to
Slack
know the
message, or
keyword.
sending an email, or picking up the phone and say, "Hey, where's the leave form now?" Or whereabouts is the, I need to do expenses, but it's overseas expenses, so it's a little different. But I can't. I know it's different. Can't remember how it's different.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I think it makes such a difference to, because AI's real benefit, aside from all of the hype, the efficiencies you get for taking the admin and automating the admin. So
yeah,
the the creation and the existence of having an SOP is great. It's the admin of actually having someone sit down and do it. I don't know if you've seen these videos, these TikToks that are about. There's a dad who gets his kids to write instructions
yes,
on how he makes a cake or something like that, and he follows the instructions really literally,
yeah,
and the kids are just like pulling their hair out, like, you're not you're not following it. No, that's implied. Like, well,
yeah,
it's implied, but it's not stated. So,
yeah.
you're right. Writing an SOP is a skill, and there's skill behind it. So if you can automate that to streamline things, one word of caution I would add, and it's about the technology you're using for that. Not specifically naming any, but look into where the data is hosted. Look into how they use your data, because the big caution that we see on a lot of AI tech at the moment is making sure that you keep personally identifiable information out of it, because it stays in the data lake then. Same with your business information,
Mm.
your commercially sensitive data. So just be really, really mindful of that. Do the research before you start going gung-ho with these tools, as great as they are, to make sure that the data is in the right space.
It's a
Um,
really valid point. Data integrity, data security, data privacy, all of those things are really, really important. And regardless of your size, you could be
mm,
a solo human or you could be a multinational global corporate organization. Having that foresight to say, this is a tool we're looking to implement into the business. Does this meet our security standards? If you're a smaller organization, there are a myriad of talented IT security humans that will talk your ear off around
mm,
this. If you need some people, just let us know because we can share the details. But it's, being really aware of the tools that you're using. I went to a ClickUp event, the first ever one in Australia last Thursday. It was amazing in person here in Melbourne. And one of the things that they've just launched and introduced is a local data center for Australia. Now,
yeah,
that is a massive step forward for a SaaS solution that's come out of the US, because it now opens the doors for so many more organizations to have that tick box of, yeah, okay. So from a security point of view, that data, we've got that here in Australia. So that's like,
yeah,
we can proceed with that. So being aware
yeah.
of that is really
It's an
important.
exciting space at the moment, because Microsoft having just announced their big investment in
Yeah.
Australian infrastructure for for the internet, for data storage,
Mm,
and that data sovereignty is really important.
exactly.
Government organisations won't touch a piece of software that isn't hosted here in Australia. So being able to have that's a big step forward.
It's exciting to see, the bigger they're making these moves. So
Yeah,
the smaller organizations are going to follow, right? Because the accessibility, the cost for people hosting things are going to be, reduced when there's that competition and more data centers. So it's a really exciting space.
yeah. We just need to fix our internet. That's the only thing we need now.
Yes. Yes.
So let's take a hypothetical organisation. They've got a system in place, so they're not actively looking in the market. But what are the signs that we need to review our processes and review the systems that we've got in place? Is there anything that sort of stands out as, that's the flag, that's the red flag, the canary in the coal mine that says you're going to have to have a look at this?
Mm. Um, Users normally is the first thing that we see is those underlying currents of frustration of using a piece of tech or it just not being used. That's the other thing. You might have invested all this beautiful finance into a system and you think it's great, and yet it's not being utilized by the team. And so, therefore, that, investment is just gone to gung ho. So
Mm,
then it's really around, okay, what's happening here? Why is it not being utilized in the way that we thought we intended for it to be. Then you start having those conversations, and all of a sudden you pull one thread and it starts to unravel, and you really discover what's at the crux of the issue there. So yeah, that's always a red flag in my mind. Is sorry, we've got the dog here. Ah, he's been
All
so
right.
quiet all morning.
I've got so many important things to add to the podcast. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, he's very, very loves a bit of tech too. Um, yes. Yeah. So that's at the crux of it, really understanding those red flags that kind of start popping up, and you'll see that's a place to go, okay, hang on. Let's be curious. What's actually going on here? How can we resolve it? Is it a training thing?
Mm.
Is it a process thing? Or is it that the tech hasn't been utilized, those functions and features are not working as intended? Or is it time to, if it is a custom database, talk to those developers, make sure that those things that you're thinking should be happening are actually happening as per intention? Or is it time to develop something to support you? Reporting is one of those funny things. You've probably come across it. There are so many ways to report on data. However, many of the base build data reports are pretty basic and, a lot of fleshing around. So, making those tweaks and changes there can be, an impactful thing forward. Sorry, no, we weren't talking about reporting, but it's
No, you're right.
important.
And reporting's kind of, and also like a really good flag to sort of go like,
Yeah.
because you start going down the rabbit holes. Like, I'd love to have a dashboard that has X, Y, and Z. And then a lot of the time, if you've got the data, then it can be done. If you've got the right tools and, the right technology to be able to transform it into that visual format. But if you go down that rabbit hole and find, oh, we don't actually capture that data point, or we don't capture it. Like, how do we capture this? Either we just manually do that. Like, the number of times I've had clients who've done that, who've sort of delved into the data that they wanted to see, and they don't have that information, not to the level that they actually need it to be able to do things effectively. So that can also then highlight, is it the data that we're capturing so then you go down the route, well, why don't we capture that? Well, because that's in this system and that system doesn't talk to this one. Or because we don't actually, didn't think we need it. Well, now we do. Let's look at that process. Taking that people approach, I think, is really important. And often you'll get a bunch of key users in a room to sort of workshop, okay, let's talk about what's working, what's not. What do you have any, I guess, tips or tricks on how to have that conversation and sort of run that workshop where you're sort of laying it all bare to understand where the gaps are, and have that be a really effective use of time?
Yeah, 100%. I think being open to all feedback is really important. Don't go in with a hidden agenda. Go into that room with, we're here to support you to have an experience that is fabulous, that is enjoyable, that is easy for you. What are those points that are causing blockages or pain? Let's use that word. No one wants to have pain, right? What could it be that we could help to make it easier? If we big sky thinking, if anything was possible, what could we do? Also, those 1%ers are always exciting, aren't they? It's like, what is that 1% thing we could shift in the way that we do things to move it forward? Then when you're in there, however you like to facilitate, I love lots of post-it notes. I love whiteboards. I love pens. I love a digital whiteboard is amazing. If you're using Canva, and many organizations do now, they've got a whiteboard feature in there, so you can pop that up. If you use Miro, that's a beautiful collaboration tool for these conversations as well. But it's really around letting people talk and following that thread and exploring what can be possible and capturing the feedback. And then it's what you do with that feedback that is actually the most impactful thing. If you just have a conversation and then you just leave it in a whiteboard, what was the purpose of that conversation? Whereas if you take that, collate it, and actually put an action plan in place to move things forward. Now, these things take time. Any shift in a way of working or an organizational change or a tech change take time. So clearly communicate that as well. We appreciate that your time and your feedback here, and we're going to take that away and put that into play and just keep that communication back and forth, right? Because if someone shared something and then you go crickets for 12 months, that's not going to have a great feeling. Just keep people in the loop of what is actually the plan to resolve said issue. Hopefully it doesn't take 12 months, but sometimes it does, depending
Yeah.
on the scope and the scale of what you're looking to achieve.
And this is the exact that process that you described is very similar to the process that SaaS organizations go through to actually review their their systems and find improvements. Like, obviously there's feedback from clients and there's information that comes in, but I've seen some organizations actually take that one step further, and um, if they leverage what's called a hackathon, and for those who don't know, it's basically a day or a 2 day or a week period that a tech company puts aside for all their developers and all their people to solve a problem. And generally it's a problem in the system. It's something that's that is not the biggest thing in the world, because they're doing that as part of BAU, but it's a particular problem or a particular thing that they want to emphasize, whether it's we want to improve the user experience, or we want to improve the workflows, or something like that. So I've seen organizations actually do a hackathon for their business, for their processes, and actually say, right, well, for the next day, or maybe it's a half day, or however long, everyone's going to get together in groups, and this is the problem we want to solve. We want to be more efficient as an organization. Where can these efficiencies be found? And then the teams go away, and you might have, like, to make sure you don't have silos, kind of build the teams of different people from different departments. They go away and they actually sit down and say, well, this is the problem that we're trying to solve. What's the biggest thing for you? And I've seen this really well in an organization I worked for, where it was an issue, it was a finance issue, but it was impacting the accounts management team, because I had to create the data, and that data was manually captured, as I was saying before. So they sort of outlined where the issue impacted the business and put a highlight and demonstrate, well, this issue seems like, oh, it's just one report that finance spend an hour doing, but it's actually creating 12 hours worth of work across the business. And here's how we propose we fix it. And that way you're not only engaging the employees in identifying what the problems are, but actually identifying the solution, because at the end of the day, they're the best people to solve that problem. They're the ones doing it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I love that idea of the hackathon, and it's what a great experience when you can be in a room and not only just capture what's going on, but actually map out those solutions and connecting in those all the stakeholders who are impacted by said issue is really important. I love a connected chart. This is the system. Who is using that data at what point? How is that data integrity managed? And how are we going to, shift that through so that you're right? If it's 20 hours from one issue, that sometimes those things are hidden, right? If you're not actually looking higher up and holistic at what's going on and who's involved.
Yeah, if that 20 hours is spread across 10 people, then it doesn't seem that much of an issue. But when you actually identify and map out, like, this is a journey. This is taking a lot of time.
Yeah, that's right. And how fabulous when you do identify that and you make that shift in the organization and the tech and the ways that it's working, and all of a sudden you've saved all of that time, energy, and so that can be focused in on something else that's going to be more impactful. And that's where the power of like automations and developments in your solutions by one button versus talking about data, exporting it out to Excel and then using pivot tables and VLOOKUPs, and work with a recent client that they had introduced a solution where the reporting was not great. And hours were spent on manually manipulating data, which if you move forward and you create that design of report, keeping in mind as well, something with reporting is, are you reporting as at or as when? So like at the historical data or as at today, which is something that sometimes we don't pick up on with these built solutions, is when is that report data actually being pulled from? Yeah. Cool.
So The last question I wanted to ask you is around, I guess, future-proofing our processes and the way we use technology. Is there a way that we can avoid having to do this again to review it, or is system review and process review an ongoing process?
It's iterative, if that's the
Yeah.
way you say it, right? We learn new things each and every day, and things change in the way that we work, in the services we deliver, in the way that the operations are operating in your business, right?
Mm.
So anything to do with your operations or a tech solution is never a set and forget. We're not wanting to come in and reinvent the wheel every 3 months. However, it's really about the awareness of, okay, so there is a significant change on the horizon. Okay, so what is involved in that, and how can we front load that with
Mm.
planning and design and forethought to be able to then move that through. So you're keeping in mind that nothing is set in stone, right? Your way of working today might be fabulous, but tomorrow you've learned a new thing. And especially in a smaller business, the agility that we have in this space is amazing. However, it's again, all of these things are change with purpose, iteration with purpose.
Yeah, the other side of that is the technology evolves as well. So the number of times I've seen organizations implement a solution with workarounds because it didn't do what they needed it to do, but they needed it to do that thing. And then 2 years down the track, they solved that problem a year ago, but they're still using the workaround. So actually, staying abreast of, as tedious as sometimes they can be, the release notes when the product gets updated, and just thinking about, oh, is this something that might actually benefit us? Like, how does that change how we use the system? How does that change our process?
And this is where systems champions come into play, especially, well, any size organization. If you're introducing a new solution for your individual teams, have a systems champion so that they're the ones that are really on top of what's going on and how that best practice to utilize the system will be. I've always been, no surprise there, that human.
Yeah.
And especially in the ClickUp space, anything I find that's new, my humans know. I get very excited about it, and I will share till the cows come home. Because if there is a more efficient way of doing something, why wouldn't we consider it?
Yeah. 100%. Nicole, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on and having a chat about this. I think something that we're both really passionate about, so it was great to get into it with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fabulous.
Excellent. Cheers. You take care.
You too.
This episode is brought to you by the Artisans Business Solutions. When it comes to business operations, businesses typically tend to notice their operations when something goes wrong. Costs need to be cut, or more needs to be achieved with less. What's the key to improving your operations? Do you want to improve the running costs? Are you looking to deliver better outcomes? Or is there a way you can increase your confidence in your consistency? Whichever direction you're looking, the Artisans are here to align your operations for success through their COO services by providing expertise, the experience and the team to save you time, money and energy by getting your operations in working order. They're here for when you're ready to do more than just talk about your business operations. To find out more, visit theartisans.com.au. Thank you to the Artisans for supporting this episode.